up, everyone? Welcome to Level 7. It is time for another edition of the Agents of Fandom podcast. I am your host, TJ Zworich, joined, as always, by my good buddy, Garrett Blaney. GB, how's it going, buddy?
Oh, it's going good. I'm getting into my mysterious spy thriller mindset, ready to jump back into some Secret Invasion, and I'm stoked. I can't wait.
I tried to get into a spy thriller mindset, and then as soon as we started to try recording, my cat just knocked a bunch of shit on top of me. So I don't know if I can get in that mindset with the amount of chaos I have going around beside me right now. It might get a little too crazy, but joined as well, as always, by our man Adam. How you doing, my dude?
I'm doing great. Like we were talking about off air, I just got out of Indiana Jones, so I was on my way home trying to kind of shift my mindset out of that Indiana Jones mindset back into the Secret Invasion stuff, because it's just those are two very, very different mediums. But I'm so excited to be here with you guys today to talk about Secret Invasion.
Don't shift quite yet because I want to grab your spoiler-free thoughts of Indiana Jones from you. So we're going to make the pivot and spend most of our time talking about Secret Invasion. But don't make that shift quite yet because I still want to get your spoiler-free thoughts. We have some very special guests today, not just one, but two, from the Hops Geek News podcast. Lauren and Matt, how is it going? Lauren, I'm going to throw it to you first.
It's going good. I am very excited to talk some Secret Invasion because, everybody's probably a Skrull, and I'm ready to just get it all out. Been thinking about it for a while, so.
I was just gonna say a lot of talk about shifting for a show about doing it on scrolls. So good start here.
Matt, how about you? We are so thankful to have you on. How are you doing today?
What's up? I'm wicked pumped. I not quite living the high that was Indiana Jones, getting to see that. However, Secret Invasion has been getting better and better, so I'm pumped to get my thoughts out because we haven't even done that on our own show yet.
Ooh, well, I am excited to dive in with the two of you. I found out about the two of you from our good friend Richard Nebbins. We've had him on the podcast a few times. Got a chance to meet him in person. Just a big, lovable bear, and I love him so much. And so I'm very happy that your names came up on my feed because of him, so that we were able to do this. Tell us a little bit about Hops Geek News before we dive in.
So we're basically a weekly podcast, and we talk all things geekdom, which is basically anything you would see at a Comic-Con, anything from Supernatural to Marvel to Star Wars. Every May is Star Wars month, and we do it all over a local craft beer. So we're big on the craft beer, and we also interview a lot of like indie comic book creators. And really, it's just a platform for us to talk about the things that our spouses have zero interest in. And so we have to get all of this out. And it started during COVID, and 3 years, is it 3 years already? 3 years later, we're already going strong. That doesn't seem
Oh my
like
God, happy 3 year.
But yeah, I think 3 years in a few weeks. That's crazy. So we met on the internet during COVID, and now 3 years later, we have this podcast together. So it's a lot of fun. And we actually just did an episode last week on Indiana Jones where we recapped the first 4 movies, and we talked some fun facts, and we talked, some nostalgia and all that fun stuff. So, and we're going to do a Shark Week episode. We never know what we'll do with that. We've done Sharknado.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's really just whatever we want to talk about.
Well, everyone, if you're listening, you want to hear some indie content, go check out that episode on Hops Geek News podcast.
Yes, and make sure you also tune in to not only our own podcast, but the other podcasts on the Agents of Fandom podcast network. We got a brand new one we just launched this week, Cinema Sibs, hosted by Rachel and Patrick Leishman, and their first episode in honor of the new Indiana Jones movie was re-reviewing Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark, so make sure you check that one out. Adam, talk to me about this movie because you're fresh out of Indiana Jones. You just got back a couple hours ago.
Oh my God! I loved it, and when this film it was a couple months ago, I think 2 months ago, it first premiered at Cannes, and everybody was so anxious to see what the reactions were going to be. And then I think after like 15 or 20 reviews, it came out to like 45% or something on Rotten Tomatoes, which is probably something that all of us, myself included, put a little too much stock in every now and again, especially when there's such a low number of reviews, like 10, 15, 20. But it was still disappointing nonetheless. Like, this is a really big deal. Harrison Ford's final chapter is Indiana Jones. I think just generally that's like being one of the most iconic characters of all time we all wanted to really love it. So it's just like it's coming out of the gates, it's already feels like that's kind of working against us. And then like I rewatched all the movies over the last, I don't know, week or so. And it was really just like I was so into that mindset. Like I think I'd almost kind of mind tricked myself into thinking that I was going to love it regardless. And then like I was like afraid to just be ready to just be dismissing criticisms and stuff like that. And then I get in there and I'm like halfway through and I'm like, God, this is just fucking perfect. Like I love this so much. And then like going all the way throughout, it's an incredible movie. Indy brings all that same heart and humor and everything that we're used to seeing out of him. And then Phoebe Waller-Bridge is almost like this young, and she reminds me so much in this movie of like a young Indiana Jones, like that we see in Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom, and these young, those older movies. And like their chemistry, it was really just like absolutely brilliant. But then the third act, like you guys have heard some people say, it's been circling around the internet. The third act goes a little crazy, and I'm sure mileage is going to vary on that. But for me personally, it didn't really bother me. It's not one of those things that comes out of like right field, and you're just like, wait, what is going? Like they explain it, they build up to it, and then depending on like your mileage is going to vary on like, well, I either did want this or I didn't want this, but overall, it's an absolute great time. And if you have any attachment to these characters or like familiar with the franchise, I think you're going to really enjoy it. And if not, you can find the movies on Disney Plus, so go check those out and then head to the theater to go see it. But overall, I thought it was an absolute great time. I think I'd probably give it like a 9 out of 10.
Very, very interesting. I know we're going to have a review up on agentsofandom.com by our own Agent Ash, so make sure you check that one out as well. No live show from us this week, but we'll be back live next week. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, make sure you rate us 5 stars. Leave a nice little review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit the notification bell, give us a little subscription. It does help us out oh so much. And before we dive into Secret Invasion, I want to give a shout out to our producer, one of our fearless leaders, one of the best graphic designers in the industry, Ruben Rapalda, not with us this evening, taking some much needed family time. And so just want to give an extra shout out to Ruben because we love him so much. We're nothing without him. All I really have to do before I send this back to him is just press record and then like press stop at the end. But it still feels difficult as hell, and I get extra
And you
nervous
already
when
messed
I'm
that up once.
Yeah, I
What are we
did. I
doing without
literally
him?
messed it up once. I had one job and I already messed it up. So, Rube, can't wait
You
to have
thought
you
you were
back.
going to skate past that without me mentioning it, but alas,
Yeah,
I brought it up.
that's fair. That's fair. But shout out to Ruben, and can't wait to be back recording with you next week, my dude. But let's talk about some Secret Invasion. Spoiler warning for the show. If you haven't seen it, press pause on us. Go watch it. Come back later. If you want to check out a written review, go over to agentsfandom.com where Adam has been covering the first 2 episodes and will be continuing to cover it week to week. We're going into uncharted territories now. We've only seen the screeners for the first 2 episodes. We're going in brand new next week, having not seen anything. Lauren, I want to throw this to you first. Just kind of general thoughts. What did you think about this series as a whole so far, and then episode 2?
As a whole, so far, I'm loving it. There hasn't been a Disney Plus Marvel series yet that I haven't loved. But this one, I love that they're all very different. And honestly, this one I especially love because I'm constantly guessing. You're constantly analyzing everybody. Are they a Skrull? Are they real? And obviously, I think everybody, when Maria died, you're waiting for her to turn into a Skrull. You're waiting for it to not be real and not be true. And one of the things I was really looking forward to was finally getting some legit Maria Hill content, not just little pieces, not just her being a supporting character. And hopefully we get flashbacks. I don't know, but I'm loving it. And I'm loving I don't want to say downfall of Fury, but I'm loving seeing the weakness of him. And I really do feel like he's mourning for Natasha, and now he has to mourn for Maria. These were people that were very close to him. And I just feel like he's unraveling, and I'm loving it because I feel like he's going to have a redemption arc. He has to.
It's one of the most interesting, I think, parts of the show, just seeing him be totally, utterly alone with his back against the wall. He doesn't have Coulson anymore. He doesn't have Nat anymore. He doesn't have Maria Hill anymore now. We did have Adam and I theorized last week that maybe we get a bit of a Civil War callback, a Winter Soldier callback, little Tetrodotoxin B. Maybe she's was just Bruce Banner developed it for stress. Maybe she just used it to slow that heart rate down. but it doesn't look great so far. Matt, what have you thought about the first 2 episodes?
I'm with Lauren. Like one of my favorite genres is like spy thriller, first of all. So you kind of get that mixed in. And this feels like the perfect show for everybody who wants to come out with theories, right? Like we saw what happened with WandaVision and Mephisto. This is the show to like run wild with those theories because it's the perfect time to do so. And it's just fun guessing. And what you always get out of Sam Jackson, right, is he's that badass. He just carries so much confidence. And so to see the other side of that coin, which is something we haven't really seen from him in a while, acting wise, I'm here for it. Everybody in the show has been acting phenomenally. The character interactions, it's just been great. We're only 2 episodes in out of what I believe 6, so it's already kind of a third of the way over, which kind of sucks. But the things that it's setting up for has going to have some big ramifications going forward for everybody who's basically like, what are we building to? What are we building to in the MCU? Well, this is it right here. I feel like this is a key piece, and when it's done, it might be like a really top tier MCU property that's come out.
I'm with you. I've enjoyed every second so far, and I agree with both of you in terms of one of my favorite things to get in TV and movies is like I don't want to see what's coming. That's one of the reasons why I loved Winter Soldier and watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at that same time, because it was like, Hydra! They're everywhere! What's going on? And you don't know what's coming next, and it's just so wildly exciting, and you get the same vibes from this show. Like every corner they turn, you really don't know what's going to happen. Adam, I want to throw it to you. You've been writing the reviews. 2 episodes in, what do you think of the show as a whole? And episode 2 specifically, did it do it for you?
Oh yeah, well, both episodes. I mean, Lauren and Matt hit on it perfectly. Just like the vibes that we're getting from this is just—it's unlike anything. We saw it a little bit with Black Widow, and then we definitely saw it with the Winter Soldier. But it's like I need more of this. Like, and I almost feel like, do I want more of this because then I won't appreciate it as much? But then at the same time, I'm like, God damn it, I don't care. Just give me more of it because I love it so much. But like overall, through the first 2 episodes, they've done a great job. Like TJ, you talked about this a little bit. I think when we saw the first 2 episodes initially, when we got the screeners, about how episode 1 does a really great job of establishing the stakes. And then this most recent episode does a good job of kind of establishing the story, like how we got to where we're at, how we got here, and then like what things could be looking like going forward. And I wrote about this a little bit in my episode 2 review. What I thought was interesting is that there's so many parallels here. Well, also before I just want to say quick, like parallels to Obi-Wan, because like Lauren was talking about this redemption arc that we're probably going to see Nick Fury going on. I've been noticing a lot of like parallels with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like we pick up with Obi-Wan in his series, and he's this washed up like guy. He's dealing with all this stuff, and by the end, he's taking on Vader and doing that kind of, which I think we're poised for something really similar with that. But as far as the rest of the series, or just this episode in general, like the stakes, they did such a great job with that, because it's just like we really can't tell at all. Like you were talking about who we can trust and who we can't, and it's just like I love it. And at the same time, I'm trying to not fall victim to the theories, because I'm so bad for myself for getting super invested in these theories and then getting disappointed. Like with WandaVision, I was waiting the entire time for Doctor Strange to show up at the end and all this crazy stuff. And then Paul Bettany going on and talking about, I'm getting to work with an actor that I've never worked for in my life and all this stuff. And I was like, it's going to be.
And it's him. That was fucked.
That was absolutely, I was like, it's going to be Michael Fassbender as Magneto coming up. And then it was just himself. And then I'm like, I think about how upset I was during that time, and I'm trying. Like I'm so bad when it comes to theorizing for also getting invested. Some people are great at it, just being able to like rattle them off and be like, I don't care if it doesn't happen. Me, when I start rattling stuff off, then I'm like, oh man, if I'm doing this and then it doesn't happen, I'm gonna get so upset. But like I still, just this era that we're in, it's just so much fun. They're doing such a great job through 2 episodes for sure.
I love the Obi-Wan comparison because it's such a similar story, but almost from the opposite sort of narrative, where it's like for Obi-Wan, it's for the same for both, like starting back up against the wall, not like their old selves and building into it. But for Obi-Wan, it was everybody telling him, dude, you're Obi-Wan Kenobi, like you can do this. And he's like,
get in the game.
Nah, like that's not me anymore. Like I can't. And then for this, everyone's telling like, Nick Fury, you have lost it, man. Like you can't, you're not ready for this. And he's like, I'm Nick motherfucking Fury. Like, yes, I am ready for this. Garrett, what did you think about episode 2? And when they started the episode with a flashback, how hopeful were you? Did you put your clown mask on thinking Clark Gregg would be there?
Oh, always. Of course I did. Of course I did. And I was bamboozled. But, I think this episode just does a really great job of essentially doubling down on everything that the first episode does really well on. We, like Adam said, we have the stakes are kind of laid out in the first episode, and I believe they're doubled down on in this episode. We get much more of Olivia Colman's Sonia, and we see her depth and how scary she is,
Brutal.
and the lengths that she'll go to,
That figure,
to
man.
protect. Yeah, exactly. That scene is
That answered that question.
Exactly. It's an incredible scene, and it's what we would expect of Nick Fury, to be honest, with what we've learned of him and his legacy in the MCU. So to see that side come out in the future of the series is going to be super exciting, because right now it's like, oh, is this the guy we've learned about all this time? And of course we are going to find out that he is. And so I'm really just invested in the story right now. The performances are really just top notch. Gravik, Kingsley Benadir is just so menacing in this role. Plays it perfectly, and so I'm just so along for the ride right now.
Yeah, he's so menacing, and just it's his facial expressions more than anything else. Like the way he gives, like, I realize this is an oxymoron, but like intense apathy and passion almost at the exact same time. It's just incredible. But we talk about how this episode really brought extra context to what the stakes are, and there's two things right at the beginning that I think do that. One, it's Nick Fury promising to all the Skrulls, like, you have my word. If you help protect my country, I will, like, my planet, I will help find you a new home. It's not like it was simply, oh, hey, hang out for a little while, guys. We're going to do our best to find you a new place. It's, hey, actively come do dangerous work as spies for us, and then we will find you a new place. So you really get the full understanding of why so many of the Skrulls are pissed off, because they were promised something and they didn't get it. And the next thing that I think really introduces the scope of this show and the problem that this secret invasion will create in the MCU is it's not just a few hundred Skrulls here. It's not just a few thousand Skrulls here. There's millions. There's millions of us here now. All of the Skrull refugees around that we could contact came. I didn't know you were coming back, Fury. When you came back, you weren't the same. Lauren, when you heard all this, like, was that as jaw-dropping of a moment for you as it was for me to go like, oh God, there's a lot of them?
I mean, I knew there was going to be a lot just because if you look at the comic books, obviously they were everywhere and they were slowly, secretly invading. So it didn't surprise me, but knowing that Nick Fury had no clue and that Talos was just now telling him this and they were supposed to be close, and I felt like they were both mad at each other and they were both mad at each other for good reason. But it's like they were both in impossible situations. And yeah, Fury, how many planets has Fury been to? And he's promising him and Captain Marvel are going to find a planet
I was
together.
going to say, like, Carol Danvers also made the promise, and she just kind of dipped and disappeared. At least Fury's back.
Yeah, but I wonder, again, I'm going to pull in Obi-Wan. I feel like they both harbor guilt for the people that they felt responsible for that are either no longer there or aren't the same as they were, because they felt like they should have done better, even though they probably couldn't. Like, maybe he felt like he should have beeped Carol sooner, not waited till he was turning to sand. But I love that you guys keep referencing Agents, because in that last season, I'm going to go off on a tangent real quick, I promise. Were you waiting for somebody to turn to dust in that last season of Agents? Because I was really hoping half of them were just going to vanish and it was going to reconnect into the MCU, and then it didn't.
I hoped, of course, but I think I remember, like, a lot of discourse around the time, like, leaking that it was, like, definitely not going to happen. So I think in my heart, I, like, kind of knew, but of course I was always hopeful that it was going to reconnect more so like it had in the previous seasons, because obviously it was literally baked into the MCU at the beginning. The first season literally matched up so well that it fell to where the reveal of the Winter Soldier happened in between the episodes of, like, when it would literally happen in the MCU. So it was a fully seamless transition, and that's how important this show was to the MCU at the time. So yeah, I always wanted it to go back and relive its roots, but the discourse between Feige and Ike Perlmutter and the Marvel TV / Marvel movie like rift was just so big at that time, and obviously eventually completely broke. But looking back, I'm still always very hopeful that some shred of something is going to come back
Right.
and
Send
wrap
Maria
around
to
to
Tahiti.
exactly.
I have two.
Imagine.
Like,
Oh!
this, to be
Or
honest,
make her
this
a life model
is
decoy.
yeah. If
Hey,
they bring in if they bring in LMDs and scrolls at the same time, like that's just gonna be like, oh, like too much for my brain to handle. I think like just all the different possible
Fake.
faux people we'd be seeing there.
Yeah.
But like, to be honest with you, like Secret Invasion is the one place that until if no Agents of Shield person shows up in Secret Invasion, I will basically leave my clown mask in my closet until Secret Wars, and then I will put it back on, waiting to see my people. But like, to me, there'll be like truly nothing possibly more satisfying in this show than it's just like Nick's got nobody left. He's calling somebody who pops in. It's Melinda May. Ah, it's Quake. Like that to
The
me would just be
cavalry.
the most exciting possible thing. But I don't think I expected it much at the end of the show, because I was kind of the camp of like, they're still part of it. They're just in another timeline, like they were my people were part of the plan, and then they left to another timeline, and now they're in a different place of the multiverse, so they don't know what happened to all of our people. And so while I still kind of hope it pops back in at some point, if it doesn't happen in Secret Invasion, I'm almost going to be like, all right.
Yeah,
Secret
it
Wars
makes
is
the
not
most
back.
sense here for sure, that rather than any other
You
property.
keep teasing us with Quake, like liking things and rumors. So it's like, what are we doing here? Where
And
there's smoke, there's bound to be fire. Hopefully,
we haven't talked about this since it showed up, but like the damn poster in Across the Spider-Verse.
I was just gonna say, I saw that as well. That's so amazing. I was so happy when I saw that on Twitter, when whoever found that, like I was like, it was. And at first I had only seen, like, I didn't see the full shot of the picture where you could tell like, oh, this is animated. It was like zoomed in onto the poster, and
Wait,
so
I missed this. What poster was it?
it's a poster from like a newspaper clipping in one of the seasons of Shield where Daisy's on the run as like Quake, and she has like a hooded, she's like hooded, and you can like not tell who she is. And that is like, the poster is in the background of like Miles's room in one shot of Across the Spider-Verse. And it's like, when I first watched it, all I saw was like Genki playing Spider-Man on the PlayStation in the TV, and then it's in like on the background on a poster board behind that. So, which is, side note, that's why those movies are so amazing, is because you can literally watch them 1,000 times and find
something
new
new
stuff.
every frame.
But it's sad that Sony references Agents of Shield before Marvel does. I will say that.
True.
Sony does a lot of weird things.
Well, yeah, nothing they do can be explained.
Imagine just like the first place we see the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pop up is like Madam Web. They're just like, that's the universe.
I'm saying right now, if
universe.
that happens, I'm thrusting myself off the nearest cliff or into
said he was going to see
space.
Spider-Man soon. Instead, he gets Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Regular lion blood dropped into him that makes him turn into a power. Yeah, I don't want to talk about that either.
It wasn't lion blood, it was gravitonium. Matt, what did you think about meeting Maria Hill's mom and that interaction between her and Nick Fury? I thought it was just gut wrenching.
So it definitely was. A little background is like that scenario where they're carting somebody off the back of a truck, draped flag. I've personally had to do this experience. So like I was able to put myself into the shoes and be like, well, like I was one of those troops, like bringing off a, casket or whatever. So I've been there, and you kind of feel the emotions at this point. Like Fury really felt it. She trusted you, Nick. Like you were her person, so to speak. And so it's like, damn. I mean, if you look back to it right from the get-go, Maria Hill and Nick Fury, they've been side by side. They went through everything together. And it just kind of hit at that moment, like, dang, we really don't have Maria Hill. Kobe Smolder, she's gone. She was hyping the show up the most, I think, out of any of the cast. And so none of us were expecting like I kept thinking like, okay, maybe she's a scroll, maybe she's a scroll. But then when she actually died, I was like, oh, she's not. Like, what the hell? And then they hit us with like the million scrolls are on the earth, and I was like, I knew this had to like link to Secret Wars down the road, and it really broadened the scope. And I was like, damn, for the second time, we're really going big here. And it was cool to finally meet her mom and kind of tie those loose ends and kind of see the more of the connection between Fury and Hill, because I mean, they've been together for the entirety of the MCU just about.
Especially if you've watched Agents of Shield, and obviously she's not in it much, but she is in it enough to
Yeah.
where you can see more of the how deep the relationship is, and how, you know, she switches to like the government sector when Shield falls down, but she's still kind of helping take care of everything for so like you do get that added context and how deep that relationship goes. So I'm so with you, Matt, that was very hard to watch, and I can't imagine, you know, having been in that situation,
Right.
watching it, putting yourself there. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, she really, her words cut into him. Like, you know, tell me. I guess the location of where this happened like isn't in the debt that I'm owed, kind of thing. And then when she actually finds out, well, it was a trap for me. They did it to hurt me. Wow, that was just you. It felt like that woman's daughter had actually died, and she was.
Yeah, exactly.
The words were very, very cutting. It was almost hard to watch. Incredible
and
scene.
Yeah, and Fury saying Elizabeth, like it's like when you found out, you know, Hawkeye had a wife and kids, and Fury set this up. Like he's close to their families too. So I feel like, yeah, it further showed how close he was to Maria. That he wasn't just close to her; he was on a first name basis with her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he showed emotion, I think, with his expressions, and like
Oh,
he
yeah.
told a lot. He emoted really well in that scene to be like the gravity of the situation kind of started to sink in at this point. I think it was more than just some bombs going off in Russia. This is personal now. I really messed up along the way.
Agreed.
Not to keep comparing it to Winter Soldier, but it was like honestly one of the first times that scene was the most like emotion I've heard in Fury's voice since Natasha. Like when he was worried that she actually died after she buzzed herself in Winter Soldier, and she was like, "I'm good." It was like that moment of like oh no, like somebody I really care about is gone, and I'm genuinely shook. We don't see Fury shook that often, and it's just like he's genuinely shook in that moment. Not only do we see the scope of how many scrolls there are, but we see the amount of scrolls there are in really important positions. Adam, Gravik gets promoted to General Gravik by a little bit of a coup from the Skrull Council, and we see that like
What
it's
a
the
weekly
Prime
drop
Minister of
that
Britain.
episode, huh?
It's the yeah, it's the Prime Minister of Great Britain. It's the leader of NATO. It's Tucker Carlson. Like
Shooter McGavin turned Tucker Carlson.
yeah, exactly. Like Adam, what did you think about not just like the sheer number of scrolls, but starting to learn the position some of them are in?
Oh, I mean, it's terrifying because I mean, like the first time we really learn about this, like this little council already just has so much power. Like with NATO, like this guy could call. There's like the armies this guy could bring to his call, and then like with the influence that you have with FXN, the news. I believe that was what it was called, the FXN news anchor, which I think it's pretty clear.
Yes,
The
they changed
parallels
their
they're
name.
trying
Thank
to,
God.
yeah, it's pretty clear the parallels they're
Yeah,
trying
they're
to
not
draw.
subtle.
Draw with that, and that there's a lot of people that would be
ABC.
listening to that. That they could definitely be pulling in, and it was just like it's so terrifying to see them in that position. But it was also like for Gravik, like you could tell that that wasn't really like a general consensus. Like when he walked in there, they weren't like, you know what, we've had enough. We're ready to bring you like into the leader of this. Like they were terrified of him. It was really more just like we know the damage this guy can do if we don't like meet his demands and just listen to what he. So it's like whether we're gonna play our cards later, right now, like right now we just have to listen to him and do what he says, or else like this could go terribly for us. Like he's generally or like genuinely just I don't know. He's one of the more like threatening villains that I feel like we've seen, like especially for it just to be this personal, but also like on such a grand scale. Because like I cannot imagine Fury in any kind of interact. What's Fury gonna do against Gravik right now? Like I can't envision any scenario where he comes out of that fight like a one-on-one fight alive. And also Fury's
Especially
got
considering
everyone.
we saw.
Oh, you go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead,
I didn't
man.
mean to interrupt. I was saying
No, go ahead.
the Easter egg of what she was looking into, like the 4 things that they've been researching. there's no way
Right.
that Fury or somebody's coming out unscathed.
Mhm.
Absolutely, yeah. All that stuff.
That's what I was
going
gonna say.
on.
Like,
Yeah.
we see Adam. You brought up a great point about like how terrified they are of Gravik, and they don't know how terrifying Gravik is yet because they don't. That council doesn't know about all the shit he's got going down. And that was the one of the next parts I wanted to pivot to was shout out to Ruben because the first time I watched these screeners, I don't think I must have been like checking my phone or one of the dogs did something stupid and I was looking at them, but I wasn't looking at the screen when they were scrolling down on the screen. And Ruben was like, dude, you got to go back to 42, 40, 37 or whatever it is. And you see Groot, you see the Frost Giant, you see Cull Obsidian, you see Extremis. I didn't think we were going to hear an Extremis mention again, but it's back.
God, they just don't let it die.
They don't. Iron Man 3 gets more callbacks than we could have possibly imagined when that movie came out.
Man.
Oh my gosh, that's true. The Mandarin.
Oh man.
The Mandarin,
They
the
gotta make it
Shang-Chi,
make sense.
Extremis here,
Yeah,
even friggin'
retroactively.
even friggin' Harley Keener showing up in Endgame, like
All
just
the
the
hell
most
fire.
random things at all these different points. It's interesting that they seem to be taking the Super Skrull approach, not from the Fantastic Four like the comics, but just through all types of different DNA manipulation through things we've seen in the MCU so far. I got to admit, I thought it was going to be maybe a Fantastic Four reference when we saw the stretchy arm from Gravik in the trailer, but it does seem, in fact, that like no, it looked a lot like Groot. Then it's because it's in fact directly mimicking Groot.
I do like that they took that Fantastic Four storyline and were able to like make it
Hold
the
it.
MCU. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do really like that a lot.
And just like the one of the things of, as you can hear my cat Shadow in the background saying hello as per usual, one of the things I thought was so cool is just like this is one of the things that makes the MCU great is like dude's hand got chopped off. Where did that dude's hand go? Well, 8 years later, or whatever it is, 6 years later, 4 years later, we now have an answer for what happened to Cull Obsidian's arm and what it got experimented on. Just so cool how they do this. The one thing I wanted to touch on that I just rewatched this last night, and one thing I noticed was the emphasis put on a specific line: the harvest wasn't there. What are they looking to harvest right now? Is this more powered people? Is this more abilities? Is this more places they can get DNA or power? What are they trying to harvest? And it's interesting how you can kind of see the small dynamics within that group of like, oh, General Gravik's not always right, and it's like, what the fuck did you just say? You repeat that again, you're dead,
They're gonna
motherfucker.
go. Yeah, they're gonna do Sopranos like they did on the one poor guy. I was like, that was the scene straight out of Sopranos.
Exactly.
I don't
And
want to
so,
spoil it for Wong, so I won't say anymore.
yeah.
That was a banger
that
reference.
callback.
But no,
Garrett,
in the
I wanna-
comics. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say in the comics, that's their one issue is they can't mimic these powers. So I think they're gonna try to infiltrate one of the Avengers or some superhuman.
I think we saw that like Rhodey's a skull.
Oh, Rhodey's a Skrull.
Like, if there's no guessing there,
Gotta be.
my man's a scroll. But when he was like, why can't we just call the Avengers? After seeing that scene, it's like, oh, they want the Avengers to come down because they want to take their DNA, because it looked like they're also trying to take Fury's DNA when they went to remove him and he reverse Uno carded in the restaurant there. So
They
it's
kept
like
calling
that's
him
what they
Nick.
want.
You
Yeah.
don't call him Nick, you call him Fury.
His whole vibe was off.
He was being disrespectful and kind of a not nice guy. I don't know what the rating of the show is.
It's
we're dropping F bombs
adult.
left, right, and center. That's you're good to go. Here's two questions I want to ask everybody, and that's one: who do we think could possibly show up, or like have maybe if it's not the character, a reference to the character in terms of more powers to harvest, and who do we see? Could we see outside of the reveal at the end of the episode? We'll touch more on that later. Who could we see Fury go to for help? Because like obviously he needs some kind of plan, some sort of backup, whether it be some Agents of Shield people, whether it be friggin' Linda Cardellini with some batons. Who's who's Nick Fury going to be going to for help, and whose powers do we think could be seeing to be harvested here? Garrett, I want to throw it to you.
I'm glad you brought up that line because it is so throwaway, and then it just gets completely dismissed. And I do think it's going to be incredibly important. I think it is a person and or people to harvest their powers. That's how I took it when I heard it. And man, I don't know. It could really be anybody. I keep thinking of people in my head. And I want to say them, but then it could be this person too. So I don't know, man.
Well, they haven't really set up anybody to return. Like every actor and actress has been pretty open. They're like, I don't know when I'm coming back. I don't know when I'm coming back. So it's like, man, who hasn't talked yet? What's Benedict Cumberbatch up to these days?
Imagine.
And if there's one person that you could go to and request some help from and not really have to worry about, like, it's not like Doctor Strange is a meta-human. It's not like this is the Hulk, right? Where it's like you really don't want them to get Bruce Banner's blood. This is just a regular human who's damn good at magic. So it's like that is somebody you'd think would be able to help you out, but maybe he's out in the dark dimension with Clea right now.
Oh
Maybe
yeah.
it's mutants. They're
Yeah,
harvesting mutant DNA.
Oh,
One thing, that's a good one.
Oh, I like that.
Don't do that
Yeah.
because I swear, if we look and we see that they're harvesting like any mutant that we see, like Nick Fury rescues Jubilee of all people, I will
Oh my
lose
God.
my shit.
We already know Wolvie's showing up within the next year. So in Deadpool, they're going to connect that.
Yeah.
I mean, and we already have Miss Marvel. I do think he's going to call for help for the Marvels. I think that'll be at the end, and I think that will lead straight into the Marvels.
Ooh,
I mean, we know
Photon,
he
she
teams
could
up
pop
with
up,
them.
yeah.
The scroll
Monica.
already said we need you up there at the end of WandaVision. So
Maybe she was. Maybe they were trying to get Monica up in space
Well, that's a
so
good
that
point.
Fury couldn't ask her for help when. But anyways, that is another question I wanted to pose. Is
Maybe
like,
it could be Kamala because in the trailers for the Marvels, he's back. He's up at Sword. Do we know when that takes place in the timeline? Because
that's what I was just going to bring up. Is there's reports that Maria Hill is going to be in the Marvels. Whether or not that means she somehow survives through this, or it could be flashbacks, or maybe just the entire movie is set before this.
I think it's set before this.
I think
That's
it's
one of the
gotta be
reasons
at
I
this
was
point.
thinking.
They're like making this like Star Wars now with the non-chronological nonsense. Come on.
That's like that because that's the thing, right? Is he was up on Saber,
Yeah.
so it's like it has to be before this, or he has to end back up on Saber.
I think he ends
Agreed.
back up on there because I'm gonna assume that we're gonna get badass motherfucker Fury in the Marvels, and we don't have him right now. So I'm hoping that this is the redemption, and then we get full on Fury in the Marvels. That's what I hope.
Interesting.
I agree, that's what I hope, but I feel like almost like my heart is telling me the Marvels will be set after, but my brain's telling me like, this is
Yeah,
it's gonna be set before it, isn't it? And just like the Marvels post-credit scene is some big Skrull thing, and then it's gonna be like, all right, let's wait 3 more years before we find out these answers.
The question is, did he have shoes on in the trailer? Maybe that will give some insight, as the Fury that was down and out did not have shoes on.
True.
Put on our ultra detective glasses and find that out.
This is the type of show where you can really do that, I think, and really just pick things apart the way we haven't since WandaVision, even though it didn't always go the best in WandaVision.
Yeah.
Adam, what do you think? Like, who could Fury be going to for help? And who do you think they could be trying to harvest powers from?
Well, there was 2 people that came to mind. Like for the like Fury going for help is one. Like I have no clue because they've said a couple times like you don't have access. I think he even said like he was like I used to know everybody. I had eyes everywhere, ears everywhere, and now I have nothing. So like I wonder if he even has anybody's number. Like if he even has access to call anybody. Like I feel like probably not. But like there's 2 names that come to mind in terms of people that the Skrulls could be thinking about. Like the least like exciting, the more boring one is just like I don't know, Steve Rogers or some kind of Winter Soldier tie-in where they're looking for Super Soldier blood of some sort because they have
Don't go
Extremis.
Super Soldier again, please.
Yeah, that was my
Well,
first
we
thought,
know
too.
what do we know about Extremis? Extremis is super unstable, and like the Skrulls are smart. They know that they're gonna know the stuff that happened in Iron Man 3. Like people could destabilizing and blowing up, and like I know they want to be careful about that. So like maybe in their mind's eye, like if we get a hold of, I don't know, some kind of super soldier DNA like they were distributing in that show, like maybe we can kind of stabilize it with that. Now my only other option is like that I'm thinking about that this just popped into my head a few minutes ago, and I don't even really know the logistics of all this or how it would work. I mean, it would be incredibly difficult given how her character arc came to a close in Multiverse of Madness. But like Wanda and her DNA, her blood, her DNA, and everything directly like she's got like Infinity Stone in her DNA.
She's
Like,
not dead.
no, she's definitely not dead, and like she's got with all the stuff that was going on at Sword, with like her going in and doing all that stuff with Vision. Like I feel like there's and Monica being there, and then Monica's relationship with Fury upcoming in the Marvels. Like that, I don't think that I don't like. I have my question their ability to actually get their hands on that, but I can see them being interested in something like because for them that's like the icing on the cake right there. We can get our hands on Infinity like DNA blood that's infused with like the power of the Infinity Stones, like that. That's it. And so that for me, that's like the more exciting one. I think that's probably pretty unlikely, but that's just like one of those straight into left field theories. But like, I don't know. It really could be anybody, which is kind of like that's what makes this so fun. We're all sitting here doing all this theorizing, and then we are all coming up with all these different answers, and none of them may be right. That's what the best part of the show.
Yeah, we're all gonna be wrong.
It's gonna be White Vision. He's coming back like the White. He's like Gandalf
Where is he?
at the Battle of Helm's Deep. He will show up because we haven't seen a peep from him since he just flew out the roof.
Such a great moment, by the way. One of the best movie moments when he goes and
He went out for
rides
milk
down
and
that
he's
hill.
coming back.
Oh my gosh. I just got so hyped thinking about that.
Yes.
I really like the mutants call. I really like if they do some kind of mutant tie-in here and really begin introducing that, begin tying that to Kamala in some way. I think that would be really interesting. I think maybe the chalk would be the super soldiers, maybe the most likely thing of them being like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of dead super soldiers we thought was going to be here, but they weren't here. Let's look somewhere else. Something like that. I don't know. One of the most exciting scenes from the show to me was Olivia Colman just coming in there and absolutely cooking. I'm above your pay grade. What does that tell you about me indoors? Where's the trap door in here? Just such incredible stuff. Lauren, I want to throw it to you. What do you think about Olivia Colman's character, Sonya? And who do you think she is? We know she's MI6, but that's all we know. Who is she connected to?
Well, she's the granddaughter of the dude from the Howling Commandos. So I mean, she's amazing. I really hope she's not a throwaway character. I hope we see her after this. I think that we will. I think she's doing a fantastic job, and I feel like she's the new Fury. I think she's doing a kick-ass job. And yeah, she used all those guys as bait. She's like, yeah, go out there. Like she knew that them getting murdered was, going to give her a little more time to get the information she needed to get. But yeah, as soon as she cut off his pinky, I was like, oh, I'm here for her.
I like that. Next Fury. I love that. She would cook. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Cooking his blood, all right. So.
Exactly.
Matt, what did you think about Sonya?
No, I think she's not going to be the one that replaces Fury, but I think she's going to team up with Fury, and that's when they start to rebuild back their network almost. Because, God, she is so badass. Yeah, there's no way you can just make her be. She's having so much fun playing this character. Clearly, Olivia Colman's just having a blast playing this character. So it's like I want more of that, and I almost wonder if, with like the Thunderbolts, for instance, coming up, if maybe she might be the opposite to Val, and maybe we get that kind of aspect. But I'm really hoping that her and she's Fury's White Knight, and they really team up and find that relationship, and we explore more of that in this series.
That's one of the things about her that I thought I'm most excited to see in the future is like I just want her and Val to sit down in a room together, and I want that scene. I want that scene real bad with just like conversationally the two of them going toe to toe. Like I don't need a fight. I just want like them going at each other and having an argument, and I think that would just be phenomenal television. Where do you think Sonya's arc could be leading, Adam?
I love what Matt said about her being kind of like the anti-Val, and also like she really is just having the time of her life with this. And it's so funny because she said, like beforehand, remember she said like I was calling my agent after every one of their projects would release, like please get me in one of their shows or one of their movies. And you can tell, I don't know whether she knows. I mean, I assume she doesn't have any clue whether she's coming back or not because they don't tell anybody anything. But like, I feel like the vibes I'm getting from her in this show are like, I don't know if I'm coming back, so I'm gonna make the damn most out of every single scene that I'm in, and I'm gonna eat it up because like that's so far from the first 2 episodes. Like you look back, and she's like the heat check person. Like she's doing the most with the least. Like I don't know, she's just incredible. But like as for her arc and stuff like that, I don't know. You guys hit on it perfectly. Like I would love to see her in like a bigger role, teaming up with Fury or something like this. Like I do get those anti-Val vibes from her. Like I can see her kind of being the opposite, like being that same person but for the good side.
Yeah.
She's in an interesting position, right? Because we know that the Prime Minister of England is, in fact, a Skrull, and she is tasked with the defense of England. So once she finds out, or who knows, maybe already knows that that's the case, she's going to be put in an interesting spot. So I imagine, and we were talking earlier about who's Fury going to call. He doesn't really have any resources anymore. He's been fired. A lot of his friends are maybe not in the same spot. Well, guess who does have the resources? Sonya. So probably some kind of team up along the way. I do see her being this protagonistic force for the humans. She's obviously dangerous and scary as fuck. So I'm interested to see where she's going to be when she or the world finds out that the prime minister of her country is what she's fighting against. I think that's the interesting spearhead of her story, in my opinion.
The information she tortured out of the Skrull terrorist was that there was a married couple working on the science for the Skrulls to enhance them with the last name Dalton.
Yeah.
Now, Agent Ward's character, former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who was actually Hydra, his last name in real life, it's Brett Dalton. And they called them a married couple named Dalton. Well, who's the smartest married couple that we know in the Marvel Universe?
Where my mind first went when I heard married couple.
Me too! Fitzsimmons, Garrett, I wanted to see if that was the same thing.
They knew what they were doing, I think. I choose to believe.
You guys are getting me so hyped for some Agents references and stuff, and it's gonna,
We're all gonna be so sad in 4 weeks when.
That's why I keep saying put on the clown mask, because it's like, it's not gonna happen, but we're gonna get our hopes up and just feel like idiots.
We'll get more Iron Man 3. It'll be Extremis, because they can handle being near a nuclear plant, so the Skrulls are gonna be able to stabilize Extremis, and it's just gonna keep calling back to Iron Man 3.
Yeah, every single time pulling it back to Iron Man 3. Lauren, I want to keep it with you for this last part. We got one of the things that I hope sticks through these 6 episodes is like, bang, big cliffhanger reveal at the end of the episode. First one, of course, it was the death of Maria Hill. Second one, Nick Fury has a wife, and Nick Fury's wife is a Skrull. Calling back to Winter Soldier once again, where he's talking to Steve, and he's like, my wife kicked me out, as he's bleeding out on his chair. Well, apparently he does actually, in fact, have a wife. What did you think about when you saw that scene?
I was surprised, but not too surprised. Like, he got really close with the Skrulls, and I could see him having spent a lot of time with this woman, and they created a connection. I think it's interesting, though, she instantly changes as soon as he comes in, but I also wonder if he had less incentive to find the Skrulls their own planet, because it's like, would his wife end up leaving then, or staying? I mean, he can't go and blend in on a Skrull planet. So, but that was probably the last thing I expected at the end of that. And also, when he was up on Saber, was he coming down and visiting his wife? Like,
that was my thought.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, everything you guys said it before, everything in the MCU, I feel like is intentional. Like every time somebody complains about, a piece that wasn't resolved in a movie or a show, I'm like, they will get to that. It might be 10 years down the road, but they will get to it. They will call it back. I mean, they did Endgame so beautifully with all the callbacks. So this is going to be relevant 100%, but we just don't know how yet.
The most hilarious one they've left hanging forever to me is with all the things is from WandaVision, where we were all like, Mephisto, Mephisto, Mephisto. And for the longest time, we've been like, who bought Avengers Tower? And now apparently that like the rumor going around is like that
Oh man.
actually is Mephisto who bought Avengers Tower.
Oh.
To me is just like the funniest thing ever that would, if that all comes full circle, just as the biggest slap right in the face. Do we think there's any chance Nick doesn't know she's a Skrull? Any chance in hell?
I think he knows, because I think if she didn't want him to know, she would stay in that form, because they had said it was easier to trick people if they stay in that
Mhm.
form. So, plus he hasn't always been, this Fury now, so he's always 2 steps ahead. So I can't imagine her getting that by him for as long as they've been married. But we don't know how long they've been married.
That's kind of where I'm at. Is I when I watched it initially, I don't think there was any shot in my mind that he didn't know. And then now that it's releasing all the discourse of does he know, does he not know? I think if it turns out, first of all, let me just say I think he knows, and I don't think that that's the way they're going to go. But if it turns out that he doesn't know, I think I'm going to be a little bit upset, because like you said, Lauren, the Fury that we have been taught to know in the MCU is 2, 3, even 4 steps ahead of everybody else at all times. So if it turns out that he has been married to what he doesn't know is a Skrull for upwards of 20 years, that's going to erase so much of the legacy that the MCU has established for this character, and it's going to make me a little bit upset, because that's just not who he is. He is the kind of person that would know that. And in fact, I think the same Skrull that introduces him to Gravik in the beginning flashback, in the very beginning of the episode, is his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was at too. I will say it's interesting though, because on the train he was like not saying that humans and Skrulls could coexist, yet he's married to one. So I'm like, that's interesting. That's the
I think
only
that
thing
was more
casts
so
me
a
doubt.
societal commentary than
No,
an
I do
in-universe.
too. I definitely do too. It just for some reason makes me doubt just a little bit. For some reason,
Fair.
mixed in with the fact that she changes back. So, but
Right.
I
So
do have
maybe that's
questions.
it.
Like
They
if I disappeared for like 5 years, my wife would beat my ass. Like, where's he been this whole time? She has.
My girlfriend would beat my ass.
That's what I'm saying.
My
Like, if
wife.
I'm gone for 10 minutes without letting her know, I'm dead. Like,
So true.
It does add interesting parallels to, and Adam, I kind of want to throw this to you because you're the one who brought this theory up to me, and so I don't want to spoil it. But like, it does add extra parallels to the potential of the connection between Fury and Gravik.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about the big. Well, this isn't really my. This is a theory that I've heard, and Carlos, bless his heart, did a really really good job of working his ass off to debunk it this morning. And Carlos is a smart. We all know fellow agent Carlos. He's a good guy, smart guy. The theory is that Gravik is actually Fury's son, and now the idea behind this is like to debunk this. It's that Captain Marvel is set in I think 1995, and then that flashback cutscene is set in 97. So like that, the idea is that completely rules it out. Although it's one of those things where like, what did we see at the beginning of Spider-Man: Homecoming? What is it, like 9 years later or something like that? And that just completely turned out.
Yeah,
to
and
be,
just
like,
a blatant,
biggest...
like something they didn't have to do that was just blatantly wrong.
Right. So like, if that is something like that would add like a whole extra like layer to that relationship and everything. But like, I don't know. The more I think about it, I think that's probably not true. And I also do think that like in terms of Fury and knowing about his wife, like I think I'm on board now that he definitely knows, because I do think that character that introduces them in the beginning is his wife. So her name is Vara. And if you look through the credits on IMDb, there's no character credited as Vara. And I believe, so I was looking up some stuff about it earlier as well. And then there's I think it was Variety or something put up an article saying that the character of Vara was voiced by Charlene Woodard, who's the same one who plays his wife. Like at the end, so it's like basically like they're all but confirming that like that is the same person, which is one of those things that I'm kind of like, I guess I get why you want people theorizing about it. Like they want this conversation that we're having right now. They don't want to just answer that question, but at the same time, it's like that just seems like a weird way to do it, to have people like I don't know, like going through IMDb credits and guessing to try to figure out if that's. But I guess that's part of the fun of the show. But I don't know, just this whole dynamic. Like I was really surprised for one when I saw it at the end, because I'm not really, like, we talked about this I think 2 weeks ago. I'm not good about picking up on this stuff, like thinking it forward. So when I see stuff half the time, it's like, whoa, what? Like I'm always so surprised by the stuff. So when I first saw it, I was like, wow, oh, he's married to a Skrull. That's pretty great. Like I never would have guessed that. Like it makes sense now that I know it, but I'm like, wow, I never would have guessed that.
The son isn't Gravik, but they did have a son who is half Skrull, half human, who is now being experimented on by Gravik, and this son will be turned out to be Hulkling, who will be a half Skrull, half human that is experimented on, as opposed to a half Skrull, half Kree.
Interesting.
Wow, that's a theory.
Some
right
gymnastics
Let's
there.
cook that one up.
Could see
Let's
it.
cook that one up. It's possible. It's possible.
There we go.
We're still waiting for Sentry, or for Icarus to turn into Sentry from flying into the sun. TJ, so
Look,
hold off on
I
that.
knew that was far-fetched, but I still liked it, and I've taken the L, but it's a great theory. I think if they would have done it, it would have been really cool. There's a lot of things woulda, shoulda, coulda.
You're saying
but we're
if
gonna-
they had done it like we have in Eternals 2, and that is already answered, but
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. It's fine. It's whatever.
It
I'm
could.
trying to segue. Many cool things may happen, but we don't know. But we're going to keep theorizing about them, and we're going to keep doing it next week, too, on episode 3 when we're breaking down Secret Invasion. And we will be live Thursday night with his very first appearance on the podcast, Agent Brandon. Always listening in the Twitch chat or in the podcast feed. One of the very, very best people we know. Can't wait to have Brandon Moore on to talk Secret Invasion for episode 3. Matt, Lauren, where can the people find Hops Geek News, and where can they find the podcast?
Ooh, well, you can go ahead and find the podcast on any social media platform, any podcasting platform. Just search the name Hops Geek News, and you'll find us. We are. I'm on the Twitter. Lauren runs the Instagram. We both go back and forth. We write things, all sorts of good stuff. So that's where you can find us. Thanks for having us too. Like, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate this.
I'm so glad we got a chance to link up, because, yeah, this has been an absolute blast. Shout out to Rich for manipulating the Twitter algorithm and making sure that we got to see that on the page.
I just met him in person too at Disneyland on Monday too, which is awesome. Or no,
you guys were right by me.
Yeah,
I also got to meet Rich in Disneyland.
It's like I met him at Universal on Sunday. Sorry, my days are all mixed up. I was in LA for the past 5 days. So
Okay.
yes. But I was at Disneyland Monday, which I'm sad I didn't get to see Rogers the musical, but it's okay.
Just missed it.
I know.
Rich gives great hugs, huh? He's such a big guy that actually I think I saw the picture. I think you're almost as tall as him, or even taller.
Yeah,
so
I
maybe
think
it
I'm
was
just like a little
different
bit
experience.
taller than him, but yes.
But I'm a lot shorter, so he smothered me, and it was so comforting.
Matt, Lauren, it was so wonderfully nice to meet you both. Make sure you follow Hops Geeks News on socials. Make sure you also follow at Agents of Fandom on all the socials except for Twitter and TikTok. It's at Agents Fandom. We will be back next week, and it's gonna. Oh, this is such a time. Time is a construct. As we record, I'm 29 years old. As this releases on the podcast feed, I will be 30 years old. We're releasing it a whole year later. No, just actually 24 hours. We're just that close to 30. But thank you so much to everyone who was listening. Thanks so much to Matt and Lauren for joining us. On behalf of myself, Garrett, Adam, Obi hanging out on my lap, Shadow making a ton of noise behind me, and of course our wonderful producer Ruben, who couldn't make it today. We love all of you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Peace.